One. Welcome back to the Sales Show, everyone. I asked John Barrows to be here because he's a sales pro and he's running his own sales training company now, but he has such a plethora of experience from building companies to helping other people scale companies. He has over 400,000 followers on LinkedIn. He's the proud author of an Amazon best-selling children's book called I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up that he wrote with his daughter to help introduce sales to the younger generation with 100% of the profits going to charity. Welcome, John Barrows.
Hey, Simon, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So good to have you here because sales seems broken since AI.
Yeah.
So most of it doesn't work.
Right.
What actually does work?
Well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking prospecting? We talking discovery? We talking negotiations? We talking
Let's
closing?
start prospecting.
Prospecting. Cold outbound right now is pretty brutal. And yet AI sales is broken. I don't think AI broke sales. I think actually the predictable revenue model broke sales. I have a keynote here that I do called Age of the Agile Sales Org, and I position 2010 to 2022 as the golden age of sales. And especially if you were in tech sales, because we way over engineered the process, right? We have these cadence tools that blast out template emails to, at scale, personalization at scale. And then, we have our BANT questions that we ask and our generic demos that we go through and then offering massive discounts. So I think actually that is what had more damage to sales than AI. AI is just exposing all of it at a much greater level. Because what we were doing in the past, with these cadence tools and all this mass email and mass calls, again, it was more like marketing than sales. And so I think we need to get back to sales. I think quality is everything now over quantity. AI just made, personalization at scale easier, but it's still crappy emails being sent out to a group of people that still aren't responding. I mean, response rates haven't gone up with AI. You hear all this, oh, it's so good at personal. No, it's not. Because I thought AI was actually going to solve the garbage in, garbage out problem, and it hasn't. It's actually made it exponentially worse. And so you still have to have a solid foundation. You still have to have fundamentals. You still have to have, solid messaging to feed the machine for it to produce something that is legitimate. And so, I think what's working in prospecting right now is hyper personalization and what I call the give a shit factor. I had a rep who worked for me a little while back, right? And he was doing really good. He was an SDR and an SDR manager before I brought him on board here. And he had done really well. Like he'd kind of created these cadences and all this messaging and everything else. But then it all of a sudden leveled off. And it was, he wasn't getting the results he was expecting. And so he came to me and he said, John, I feel like I'm doing everything right as far as all best practices and everything else. But I'm just not getting the results that I'd expect. What do I need to change in order to change my results? And I said, Morgan, nothing's going to change until one thing does. And he goes, what? I go, until you start giving a shit. And he goes, what? I go, until you start caring. Like, I know you care about your job. I know you care about but until you start actually giving a shit about the person that you're reaching out to and thinking them more as a person that gets up in the morning, has to drop their kids off at school, has a boss yelling at them and whatever it is, and stop thinking them as a number you have to hit, a cadence you have to send, a box you have to check off, right? Until that happens, your results aren't going to change. And that to me is also the superpower that we have as humans these days. Is I call it the give a shit factor, because AI can pretend to care, but it fundamentally can't. Like it can't. But if you do, and you make that connection, all of a sudden your messaging is a lot more authentic. Your approach is a lot more interesting. You yourself are more interested in doing it, right? I know we have a lot of solopreneurs here. I'm a solopreneur. I've worked with engineers. I call it the founder's dilemma with engineers who have a really good product. They're really good at what they do. So they go out there and they talk to a lot of people about their initial solution, whatever it is. And because they are super passionate about what they're doing, they tend to get a lot of positive feedback and maybe even a couple of sales. And then they go, oh, this is easy. Let's go hire sales and put this thing on the rails, right? And then they hire a VP or a sales rep, and then those reps come in and they don't have the passion, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have any of that, so they don't have the give a shit factor. They're just doing the job, and they inherently fail. And then the engineer's like, oh, well, I knew sales was garbage. Let me go marketing. And then they do all these marketing campaigns and all this other, and it gets them to a certain point, and then they, still doesn't hit. So that factor right there is, if I were to sum it all up, is the give a shit factor is what's working right now, because everything else is just noise.
I love this. So in the end, it's love. It's actually caring about them and
Yeah.
actually putting yourself in their shoes and trying to be in service.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I get better email responses if I say the email versus if I type it. If I type
Yeah.
it, I'm in my head, right? But if
Yeah.
I say it with whisper and it
Yep.
types it at the speed of my talking,
Yep.
I have a higher open rate. And I think when we talk from the heart.
Right.
The caring is not interrupted by the editing of our cognitive function.
Yep.
And also voice notes, for example, LinkedIn typing a
Yep.
message versus talking a voice note on LinkedIn on my phone,
Yep.
same thing.
Yeah, no, I think because it comes the same thing with videos, right? Like videos, people try to be so perfect on a video and they do 15 cuts to get that. I actually do one cut videos, even if I make a mistake. It's like, oh, I'll be like, hey, Simon, I really wanted to reach out to you because sorry, man, here I'm a little nervous. Like I don't usually do videos on this, but I really wanted to get your attention here, and this is why I wanted like that genuine, right? That to me is what is going to authenticity. I think is going to come screaming through here in the not so distant future, if not already. Because all of us can write the perfect email with AI. All of us can ask the perfect questions. You know what I mean? Like create the perfect proposal, all of that. But it's the human factor that I think, is going to elevate over everything else. Now, can we use AI tools to help serve up the human factor? Absolutely. Intent signals, all this other stuff. But it's almost like, this is why I look at outbound prospecting, especially cold outbound prospecting, as far more of a marketing function right now than a sales function. Because it is about impression points, right? It's, they call, they email, they see LinkedIn, but you have to orchestrate all of this so that when they're ready, they see you as somebody that they want to engage with. Right. But like the idea of making a cold call to catch somebody immediately to then have them jump into a sales cycle with you that closes in the next 20 or 30 days, like those days, I don't want to say are over, but you're setting yourself up for disappointment and failure if you think that you're, short term, you're going to be able to send an email or make a phone call to somebody that's going to automatically pop them to say, ooh, I need that, let's buy it. But if you look at it as a marketing function, those calls, those voicemails, those emails that might lead somebody to your LinkedIn page, and then how you manage your LinkedIn page and what you put on there might lead them to your website, and your website speaks their language, and all of a sudden they come inbound, right? So like we have to take a step back and start looking, like stop the insanity of just the numbers, right? Like the doubling down on more emails and more calls and anything like that, if they're not purposeful, if they're not relevant, and also look them. Almost every company I work with right now in the SaaS and the tech industry is moving their SDR BDR team under marketing, because it's a marketing function at this point, not a sales function.
Let's say I run a business and I have only 1 hour a day to do prospecting.
Yep.
What can I
Yep.
do?
Well, this is what I train. This is what I do. So people can Google it if they want to. Google Jay Barrows, how I prospect into my tier 1 accounts. And I actually just did this webinar yesterday, which is, I think, one of the more overlooked components of sales strategy and process and everything else is the ideal customer profile, and digging into the details of your ideal customer profile. When I do trainings for clients, I always do a training prep, right? It's like I send them here's all the things I need from you, right? Like, what's your average deal size? Who do you sell to? Give me some of your case studies. And I also say, okay, give me your ideal customer profile breakdown, and ideally tiered out, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, like good average crap. And what I get back is appallingly generic. it's almost always, well, we go after companies that are between, over 5,000 employees is usually tier one for us. 1,000 to 5,000 is tier two, and under 1,000 is tier three. And we focus on healthcare and insurance. Those are our best. That's the extent that they go through with their ideal customer profile. And I think that is a horrible mistake. And this is why people waste so much time and money and energy on lists and marketing and all this other stuff, because they're sending their stuff out to people who don't really truly fit their ideal customer profile. You want to go into so much detail with your ideal customer profile that it gets so nuanced. Like for me, for instance, I don't care how many employees you have. I don't care how much revenue you have. I only care about how many sales reps you have. And quite frankly, not even just regular sales reps, B2B sales reps. Like if you look at Apple, right? Apple would be for most people, Apple would be a great prospect, like a tier one. Well, like who wouldn't want to have Apple as an account, right? I wouldn't. And the reason is because they got a lot of sales reps, but they're all B2C, right? So, and I don't train B2C sales reps.
B2B
so as great as
Apple channel partners.
Yeah, channel partners, right? So they don't look. So I go into like the department. What type of technologies do they use, right? If you're using Salesforce, HubSpot, LinkedIn, Google, Amazon, or SalesLoft, Gong, Vidyard, all those tools, like that's great for me because I plug into those tools. I know how to leverage those tools. I use some of them myself. CRM, if you're using salesforce.com, that's fantastic for me. If you're using Microsoft Dynamics, that's okay. If you're doing Excel or, Sugar or something like that, I don't want to talk to you. And so by going through the process of, I recommend everybody take your top 10 accounts, your top 10 customers right now who are, and the two characteristics you want to look for are these customers are doing well in this economy and they're getting a lot of value from your service. So those are the top 10 customers, okay? Not just the ones that are giving you the most revenue, any of that. Once you grab those 10 customers, analyze them. Like put them all together and look for the commonalities. Like where are they at stage of growth from their business standpoint? What's the department you sell into? What's that size look like? What technology? Who's the competition in there? Like the more detailed you get to this nucleus of, wow, this is what a great customer really looks like. Then you go set up your sales navigator lists to look for those companies. You go into Zoom Info and you take all that criteria, you put it into all those detailed characteristics, and you find lists of that. Now, first of all, you have 10 customers that are references for you in case studies and testimonials that you can share. And then you get that list, and say you get a list of 25 accounts that fit that profile. Now what you do is you track them. Right? So you set up a sales navigator list where you're tracking and you're getting alerts. You use tools like Google Alerts, or I use a product called Owler, Owler, where you track on very specific trigger events, right? Opening up new offices, launching new products, because you want to find reasons to reach out to them that are about them, not you. So now that you have these tracking tools in place and you're tracking your top 25 like tier one holy smokes accounts, you spend a half hour a day. And this is what I do. I pick one account every day, where for 30 minutes, I put a timer on my clock, and I got a bunch of AI tools now that help me make this more efficient. But I'll take the account that fits my profile. I'll go in and I'll say, okay, help me find all the most recent and relevant trigger events that are happening in their business that are relevant to me. I'll find those things, and then I'll be like, okay, who do I want to go after in that account? Now look at their LinkedIn profile, see what they're doing, whatever. And then I map out a 7 to 10 touch sequence. Right, where I'll kind of write, okay, my first email is going to be about this trigger event. They open up a new office. My next one, I'm going to share a piece of content. My next one, I'm going to make a phone call to. My next one, I'm going to ask them a question, whatever. And I map that out, and then I execute. So I send out that first personalized email.
Where do you map it out?
Oh, I just do it on Google Docs. So I pick one account every day, and I put all those trigger events in there, and then I kind of figure out, okay, there's my first, second, third, fourth. And then after I create all that stuff, I use AI to do it to get me pretty close. And then I put it into Salesforce's activities. I don't use a lot of the cadence tools because I don't like automation, quite frankly. Again, if I'm going to automate anything, I'm looking at it from a marketing standpoint, not a sales standpoint. And so every day, and that's interesting to me because now I'm researching an account. I'm picking an account that I want to talk to because they fit my profile. A little caveat to this is when I had a team that I did this with, when they came up with their 25, going back to the give a shit factor, when they came up with their list of 25 that fit like really core ideal customer profile characteristics, before they could prospect into them, I told them they would have to come back and tell me why they personally want to work with that company. What was it? Was it their values, what they sold, their leadership, whatever? What was it? Because once you make that connection of, ooh, I really want to work with this company, not just because they fit my profile, but because I could see myself working with them or whatever. Well, now your messaging becomes a lot more authentic and the process becomes a lot more interesting. Because now when I'm researching you, I'm researching you.
Mm.
So I do that every day. It's how I prospect into my tier 1 accounts, 30 minutes a day as a business owner. And if any business owner tells me they don't have time to do that, I'm going to tell you to shut up because you're wrong, because I guarantee you I'm busier than you are. And I'm not saying that just to brag. I travel all over the world doing trainings, live trainings on site in Europe, all over America. I run my business. I do all my social selling. I do all my prospecting. I do all my negotiations. I do all my customer success. I have one person here on my team that helps me, right? And so when people say I don't have time, it's just because they're insanely inefficient and they don't have an approach to follow.
When you say one account, is it one person, or do you try to start a conversation to multiple people in that company?
No, I usually go after, so, if we break it down, once a quarter, I got 25 net new target accounts. So I always kind of once a quarter, I try to find 25 net new tier 1 accounts that I want to go after. And I go after 3 personas per account, right? So I got VPs of sales, CROs, and VPs of enablement. So my first month with that account, I'm probably going to go after the VP of sales 6-7 times in 30 days, right? Next month, I'll go after the CRO. Next month, I'll go after the VP of enablement. So I just kind of keep doing that over and over and over, right? So, but unless there's something going on, unless there's like a trigger event that is so timely that I know I can help in the short term, right? Like, so say somebody's hiring a whole bunch of SDRs or BDRs, right? And they just hired 20 of them. Well, I know my training can help SDRs get ramped really, really fast. So in that case, I might go after the CRO, CFO, and VP of sales all at the same time. Obviously with slightly different messaging and value propositions to each one of those roles. But rarely do I kind of full court press on a client. Usually it's more kind of nurture and kind of go after this one first, then this one, then this one, then this one.
That's fascinating. So one per day, but you get to your quota. So because some people might think, oh, that's just like 350 possible people that I get in a year. But actually, how many high ticket clients do you need per year? If you do, I don't know, if you do 15 to 30, you are probably golden, right?
Yep. This is why you have to back into your numbers, right? This is why the first part of my training is always about know your sales equation. So what you do is you take your revenue target, right? Say it's $1 million. What's your average deal size? Mine's $50,000, right? I mean, I have individual licenses for individual people, but for my corporate accounts, my average deal size is $50,000. Well, that means I need 20 accounts, right? That means I need about 2 a month to be able to hit that number. So then I back into my conversion ratios of if I need two customers every single month that fit that profile, $50,000. Well, how many proposals do I usually have to send out to get a deal? Right? So if I sent out 10 proposals to clients that fit my profile, how many would those close? Right? So, okay, so say it's I got a 30% close rate, right? Well, let's just make numbers easy here. Say it's a 20% close rate, which would be bad, but say that's the case. That means I need 10 proposals to get those 2 deals. Okay, well, how many qualified meetings do I need to get that would generate 10 proposals? And usually if you have a qualified meeting, somebody who's, I kind of need your service, fits the profile, right? If you can have a 50% conversion from qualified meeting to proposal, that's okay. So that means you need 20 qualified meetings to get 10 proposals to get 2 closed business at 50 grand a year, at 50 grand. So now how am I going to get those 20 meetings? Well, I get a certain amount of inbound, right? So I get inbound leads all the time, and I get inbound leads. How many of that? Say I got 5. Okay, so that means I still need to generate 15. I got partner channels, so I manage my partner channels. I usually get 5 out of that. I might go to trade shows or events, networking events or something like that. I could get 5 a month out of that. That means I need about 5 more that I have to find some other way. And that sometimes that's outbound, right? So now that means I need to make cold calls or I need to send emails or whatever. And then you look at those conversion ratios of like, if I sent out 100 emails, how many responses would I get up to set up a meeting? If I did 100 cold calls, how many would set up, right? And that's how I've backed into my number. I know I only need to do 1 or 2 like thoughtful tier 1 cadences every day to be able to get 10 meetings a month, to get 5, 2 proposals, 2 pieces of closed business and so on. And so I just run that number. And every day I'm backing into the consistency of it. And if I want to do more, I'll do more. But I know I at least have to, because a lot of especially prospecting is about having a routine, making sure that you don't treat it as an event. So many business owners and even sales reps included, they'll say, you know what, Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4 o'clock, that's when I'm going to do my prospecting. That's when I'm going to do it. So they block it on their calendar and then they go throughout their week. And when Thursday comes up, most people look at a nice chunk of 2 hours where nobody's bothering them. They don't have any, they don't have no meetings or anything like that. And one of 2 things happens. One is they do something else because nobody loves prospecting, right? So they, no, I got these proposals I got to write. So I'm going to spend that time doing it. Or, okay, I'll prospect. But because they don't have an approach, they tend to spend 45 minutes doing research, maybe writing 1 or 2 emails that's like, War and Peace basically, and they don't get any results. It's a lot like working out. It's like, this is why I suck at working out, because I'm an event-driven worker-outer. And the point is, like, if I'm going on vacation, well, guess what? 2 months before I'm on vacation, I'm in the gym, I'm eating good, I'm like, I want to look good. And then as soon as I come back from vacation, I'm like, oh, pizza, beer, thank God, right? And then I'm like, oh, summer's coming, don't want to look like a whale on the beach, so I'm punch out, right? And then Oktoberfest, thank God, I don't have to do this anymore, right? I know if I just woke up every day, did a few push-ups, a few sit-ups, and hit the Peloton for like 15 minutes, I'd be fine. But this is how I work out. That's why I'm a train wreck. But if it's the same thing with prospecting. If you are kind of patchwork prospecting, you don't get momentum, you don't learn anything. But if you bake it into your routine, all of a sudden you get stuff done.
I love this. I love this. You can make it a process, right? And you say half an hour once a day, 1 account is enough. That's realistic for everybody listening to do.
Yep. I add in another half hour to do my social selling, right? To kind of read through articles and kind of post a few things and kind of build my personal brand. And that's where, it's kind of like me reading my newspaper. So instead of reading the news, which is horribly depressing, at least here in the States, what I do is I follow all the thought leaders in my space. So a lot of challenges that business owners have with building their brand which I think is insanely important right now more than ever, is they always say like, well, what am I supposed to post? Like, I don't know what I should say. Like, but you don't have to be the content creator. You have to be the content curator. Because say I write a newsletter, it goes out every single week. It's a pain in the ass. It takes me like 2 to 3 hours to do every single week. And then we SEO it and put it on the newsletter and all this other stuff, right? And say you are connected to me, Simon, right? And you read my blog or you read my newsletter and you like it. So you share it and you're like, hey, really interesting newsletter here by John. Some of my key takeaways were XYZ, right? That type of thing. I'm curious what y'all think. Now you share my article and somebody you're connected to reads my article and they get value out of it. Who do they thank?
Both
you.
of us. Yeah.
I might get another follower, but they don't say thanks, John, for writing the article. They say thanks, Simon, for sharing the article. So you get all the credit. I did all the work. So if you want to build your business acumen, build your personal brand, and start showing and learn along the way, what you do is you go follow all the thought leaders in your space. So go into ChatGPT and say, give me the top 10 people or companies who are specifically blogging or newsletters on this topic, right? Something that I'm interested in, something that's in my space. And please give me their source, a link to their blog. So ChatGPT will give you 10 people that fit that profile. You go read their blogs. You like them, right? So you figure out the ones that you like the vibe and you're like, ooh, that's interesting. I like that one. So then I use a product called Feedly, which is Feedly. And all Feedly is an RSS aggregator. Right? So say there's like 5 different sales blogs you like reading. You usually got to go to 5 different sales websites or get 5 different emails to hit your inbox. With Feedly, you can create a folder in Feedly called sales blogs, and you can dump all your sales blogs in there, right? So now when I wake up in the morning, I do my 30 minutes of one prospect or whatever, And then I open up Feedly, and I open up that folder in Feedly called, like CFOs in financial services, right? So I'm going to find all the top CFOs in financial services that are blogging about the challenges and the trends that they're faced with. I'm going to open up, create a folder in Feedly, call that, dump all those blogs in there. And then when I'm drinking my coffee, I just scan through the headlines. CFOs and right, and I'm like, oh, and I'll read an article. I'll be like, that's actually kind of interesting. And so I learned something, and this is the key: is you don't share what you know, you share what you're learning. People care far more about the journey and what you're learning than they do about what you say you know. So all you do is you read an article. Priority number one, you learn. Great. Now you checked off that box. Your main priority is accomplished. You've learned something. Now you share it with some context. Hey, really interesting article by Simon here. Thought it'd be really, my key takeaways were blah, blah, blah. And you share it. Now, who cares how many people like, comment, post? Because your main priority has been achieved. You've learned something. And it just so happens if you're sharing what you're learning, now all of a sudden people are starting to pay attention to you. Starting people see you as the thought leader, not necessarily the people that are writing that stuff. So in 30 minutes a day, I do all my prospecting, tier 1 approach. I don't mass blast. And the other 30 minutes a day, I educate myself, improve my business acumen, and build my brand. 1 hour, once a day, and that's it.
1 hour, guys. And this is a pro, right? So if they can do it, you can do it. 30 minutes prospecting, 30 minutes social selling. And you learn, it sounds fun actually, because the prospecting part, you are looking at people that you actually care about. And
Exactly.
you want to help, and so you are in service. And when we're in service, we have meaning, we have everything.
Exactly.
And then the second is you are learning. So you're following your curiosity because you picked those topics.
Yep.
So you're passionate about those topics too.
And obviously, you want to make sure that those topics are relevant to your ideal customer profile, right? That's how it all comes together. It's like you want to be like, I'd love to talk about the Patriots and, the New England, the sports teams here in Boston and all this other stuff. But most of my audience doesn't care about that, right? So I want to follow sales tech AI. I want to do sales techniques and strategies and those type of things. Those are the things that I'm interested because I know my audience is interested in them as well.
Yeah. What are you currently building? You have this armada of helpful tools and resources. What are you currently building?
I'm playing around a lot with the AI stuff, right? And I'm trying to find that balance of augmentation versus automation because I'm very worried for the average sales rep out there right now. I'm actually worried for the average anybody out there right now because AI is better than almost everybody from a professional standpoint at average stuff. People who are kind of process type people that are just following a process as opposed to creating or anything like that. And because we've gone from a search engine to an answer engine, and I think that's a very dangerous thing, right? Search engine, we can all argue that Google served us up whatever it felt like serving us up, but we at least had to we at least gave us a perception of choice, right? Where we would have to go through and maybe read an article or two, heaven forbid, and then create our own opinion. Whereas now with AI, it's an answer engine. You put a question in there and it gives you the answer. And for those of us that are curious and have business acumen and are question, it's a superpower because tell me where you got that, source check this, I don't believe this, go deeper on that, tell me, give me a different perspective, those type of things. I think it's a superpower for those people. But for the vast majority of people, unfortunately, who are lazy, they're just going to copy paste. And quite frankly, I don't understand what the point of the human is in that equation. A lot of people are really scared about all these AI tools and how they're going to take over sales and everything. I'm actually not worried about that. What I'm worried about is when the client wakes up and realizes that they don't need us anymore. And so for people that don't think that they're in trouble, I always encourage them. I'm like, go into ChatGPT or pick your poison, Gemini, I don't care, and just pretend like you're a potential customer. Right. So like for me, I'd go in, I'd be like, I'm a VP of sales of a 50-person sales team. I have 20 SDRs. I have 30 AEs, and I'm looking at the JB sales training. Tell me what I need to know. What are the pros and cons? How does he compare against the other top 3 vendors in G2? What are some questions I should ask? Those type of things. And when you realize in a 5-minute conversation with ChatGPT, you get more value out of some 22-year-old kid who's going to ask you BANT questions and then wait a week to talk to an AE who's going to ask you the same questions and drone through a generic demo, and then wait another week for an SE who's actually probably going to give you some value, but 3 weeks later, there's no comparison. So I'm trying to find that balance, and the tools that I'm building. I'm not looking for one systemic like AI tool that does everything for me. I do point solution GPTs. So I custom create GPTs for very specific things. For instance, like meeting prep. And any tool out there you put a name of the company in and whatever, and it'll give you this beautiful 2-page dossier that tells you everything you need to know about the business. But unfortunately, human nature, we're lazy. When that happens and I get this 2-page beautiful summary, it's like, oh, yep, check the box. I just prepared for that meeting. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really learn. Did you really learn anything about that company? Or did you just check the box that you prepared because it told you, what their strategic initiatives are and all that other stuff? So the GPTs that I'm building are, all right, who's the company you want to prepare for? Give me the website. Great. Let's talk about the industry first. Here's some trends that are happening in the industry that are relevant to you, and here's some of the angles that are taking that they might be thinking of. And then before it goes to the next level, it says, do you want to know anything else about that industry? Hey, maybe here are some questions you should be asking if you're not already. And then once you're done with that, okay, now let's talk about the company. Here's what's going on, 10K, annual reports, financial analysts, strategic direction, who their competition is and all that fun stuff. Cool, it gives you all that knowledge. Then it says, okay, do you want to learn anything more about the company? Okay, now let's talk about the persona. CIO in healthcare versus a CIO in retail. Like, what's the difference there? What do these people care about, right? Do you need to know? Now, and then it goes to the person. And then after you do that research, it's like, okay, based on all that, now let's come up with a couple of hypotheses on what their challenges are and how we might be able to help. And so it produces a bunch of hypotheses, right? And then you're like, ooh, I like that one. Okay, cool. Well, now what are some questions that we can ask to uncover that hypotheses that are impact, right? Then after you go through that whole process, then do you want me to produce a 2-page document that helps you, that you can quickly review right before your next meeting? Yes. So I think when used that way, where it's like you're going back and forth, you're learning versus pushing a button and having an output, it's like I said, a superpower. Otherwise, it's a replacement. So what I'm building right now is a bunch of mini GPTs that complement my training, that help educate the person through the process and give them the why behind the output, and then get them to the output so that they understand it. It's not just a click the button and they check the box.
And back to caring, right? When you now approach prospecting and you have prepared in that way,
yep,
you don't feel like you are interrupting them into anything. Nope. You feel almost obliged to share that insight with them, right? Yeah. You're partnering with them.
My mentality when I'm prospecting to you is I'm actually doing you a favor.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely think I can help you. And it's not just because I'm trying to make money here. It's just because I've seen this story before. I've seen these pain points before. I've seen what happens when that happens. And I know what the challenges that you're probably going to face are. And by the way, if you don't face those challenges, that's fine. Good for you, because most people do. And this is how I can help. And that's where I have no problem making cold calls. I have no problem sending cold emails, because I'm genuinely trying to help you.
And you have made sure that you are coming with something that creates value, even if it's a 5 minutes conversation.
Yeah,
because you prepared.
Exactly. If you show up unprepared for a meeting right now, you should be ashamed of yourself. Mm-hmm. I think the three worst things that you can say or questions you can ask are, tell me about your business. I think that's insanely insulting right now, because you could take 3 seconds and say, ChatGPT, tell me about this person's business. Tell me about your priorities, which again, I think is insulting, because sure, kid, I've never met before in my life. Let me share with you all of our strategic priorities that I've been talking with my board of directors with for the past 3 months, just so you can figure out how you can sell me. Like, that's ridiculous, right? And by the way, I can go in and I say, hey, Simon, here's who he is, here's his company. What would, based on his role in his industry, what would be some priorities that he probably has right now? And instead of asking you what are your about, walking in with a hypothesis of, hey, Simon, I'm working with a lot of other CEOs in your space, and they're telling us that some of the biggest challenges are X, Y, and Z. Are you on the same page here? Yes, John. Like, that shows your knowledge, shows you've been there before. Even if you're wrong, they're going to go into more detail than if you just ask a generic open-ended question. And then the third worst question I think you could ask anybody is, what keeps you up at night? Like that dumbass question. Like, my daughter keeps me up at night. Next question. You know what I mean? Like you can go into ChatGPT and say, what would keep somebody like Simon up at night? You know what I mean? And have a hypothesis walking in the door there. So if you are not prepared, it used to take me 45 minutes to an hour to really prepare for a legitimate meeting with a client, right? Like a big client. It takes me like 10 minutes now because I just go into ChatGPT and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. All right, tell me this. And all right, I want to learn this. Tell me more. Can we run an analysis of why they would care about this thing or that? Great. Now I can walk in. There is zero excuse not to be prepared for a meeting right now.
You also run a podcast. Tell us about your
Yep.
podcast.
Yeah. I've been doing it now for about 15 years. It's called Make It Happen Monday. It is, it started as just my way to connect with my audience because I started kind of office hours on Facebook Live a while back. But then I started bringing people on, and I realized that it's my favorite thing to do because it's how I learn. I don't learn by reading books. I don't learn by going through courses. I learn by talking to people who are smarter than me. And so I use it as a tool to get people who are smarter than me on and have conversations about, sales, business, entrepreneurship, mental health, a lot of different things. It's evolved over the years. I started very tactical because I kind of grew up in this space as like the tactical guy, like here's techniques and here's something quick you can do to drive something quick, some fast results. But then I've just evolved as a human and as a business owner of things about, quality, mental health, just, the grind of where we are right now. Obviously AI is a big part of it as well. But yeah, every Monday, Make It Happen Monday. It's on every platform out there, and it's a fun time. I've got some cool guests too. I had Guy Kawasaki on, Chris Voss, and a few others. So some really interesting conversations over the years.
That's amazing, and it's fascinating to see your journey also, where quality and caring becomes more and more and more important because people think of the sales profession that it's something transactional, right?
Yeah, no. Sales, I always tell people, if you're trying to convince anyone in sales, you're doing it wrong. That's not what sales is about. It's not about trying to convince people of anything. It's about helping people solve problems or achieve goals. That's it. That's why sales, customer success, engineering, I look at it all the same. We're all in sales. As long as you take the perception of sales out of the equation, sales is one of the greatest professions in the world when done right. It's one of the worst when done wrong. And I'm just trying to help people do it right, in my opinion of what right is, right? But, at the end of the day, this is why for engineering founders out there, again, I talk about sales as the transfer of enthusiasm. That's what it is. Because if you believe, I think the number one thing you need to be successful in sales is a belief in what you do. Like if you genuinely believe that what you do helps other people, not everybody, but the right type of person, then you just got to find those people and transfer that enthusiasm over to them. Right? That's why sales, everybody says, and it's still true to this day, people buy on emotion, they back it up with fact. You could have the best product in the world, but if you're like, we really do, like nobody's going to care. But if you're enthusiastic, if you're passionate about, which a lot of founders are, solopreneurs are, they are very passionate about what they do, then you just got to find the right people to transfer that enthusiasm over to.
Because it's your baby. But what if I'm a sales rep, a salesperson representing a product or service?
You got to find it. Like if you got to find a way to believe in it. Like, and this is what really resonated with me. Like when I started my company, Thrive Networks, we sold to Staples. I spent a year going through that, so I was 7 years at Thrive Networks. We sold to Staples. I spent over a year going through that and it just didn't work. It wasn't a fit. So they fired me. And I was panicked because I had never I'd never been fired before in my life. I was an IT sales guy for like 7 years, and I was like, oh my God, and I had never looked for other options. There was no plan B for me, and so I was looking around. I was like, man, am I an IT sales guy? Is that what I am? I'm like, that's gross, right? I'm like, I don't even like computers. I'm like, so I was kind of panicking, like, what do I do with my career? And my wife was the one who helped me figure this out. She's like, she goes, well, let's take a look at like, why were you the most successful rep in almost every job you've ever had, right? So she's like, well, what was your first job? And I was like, DeWalt Power Tools. She goes, well, then why were you the best rep at DeWalt in the region? And I was like, I don't know. DeWalt Power Tools are pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, I liked them. I liked them. I thought they were fun, and they were badass, right? So it wasn't really hard for me to talk about DeWalt Power Tools. Xerox, that was my next job. I didn't like copiers. Like nobody likes copiers. But I genuinely believed that Xerox was the best copier company in the industry, right? Because they had self-sourced and all this other stuff. So I believed that Xerox was the best. And then Thrive Network's my company. Why were we the fastest growing company in Massachusetts? Why was I outperforming all of our competitors in the area? It wasn't because I cared about the technology. But I genuinely believed that the individuals I was representing were going to service those customers better than anybody else. And so what I would suggest to sales reps out there is if you're right now selling something like CRM or something like that, it's like how can I get passionate about this?
Mm-hmm.
Go talk to some customers. Go talk to the founder and say, hey, why did you start this business? Like, what was the problem you were trying to solve? Or, what's your vision for this? Or go talk to some customers and say, hey, what were you doing before working with us? And what are you doing now? And what kind of difference have we made? You know what I mean? And maybe it's not this world-changing difference that they've made, but maybe you've made somebody's life a little bit easier. Maybe you allowed somebody to go home early so they can spend more time with their kids. Maybe that solution is what helped that company grow from X to Y, right? And you see this tangible thing. It's like, oh my God, like look at this. Like we actually, because they used our solution, they were able to do this. Make that connection. And if you can make that connection, now all of a sudden you can go look for people that fit that profile, right? If you can't, if you're just there truly selling something you don't give a shit about and you are just there for the commission check, I beg you to quit and go find a company that you can transfer. Because if you are that person, and I'm telling you right now, if you are listening to this, if you are the sales rep right now who doesn't believe in your solution, doesn't think it's that great, but you're there because you're getting a good commission check, you, my friend, are the reason we have a bad name in sales. Because you don't give a shit. The only thing you're doing is try to put money in your pocket. And that is why people hate sales reps. But when you find, and by the way, that is when you get burnt out. You can make short money fast in this career really easy, okay? If you're convincing people, and people are easy to be convinced. They are. Like, we are just humans. We're easily convinced about things if you know how to work it right. But I promise you, you'll burn out way faster than you could possibly imagine because it'll just suck the soul out of you unless you're just one of those douchebags that likes to do that. But if you believe in something, if you genuinely believe in it, man, you can have a long-term career in this profession, make a lot of money, and more importantly, make a real difference.
John Barrows, everyone. If people want to find your content, which is amazing, where should they go first? The podcast, the website, where should they go?
Go to the website, jbarrows.com. So letter J, BARROWS.com. That's where you're going to find everything. So if you'll look on the resources section on that page, you'll see my YouTube channel, my podcast, my newsletter, and then you'll see the individual training and corporate training as well. And you can kind of go through the details there. My YouTube channel has a ton of free content on it that people can consume whenever they want. I put out a newsletter every single week that I give tactical things and tips and ideas to work on. And then I have a whole core training, and I've gotten it down to individuals can use it, or solopreneurs, for instance, because it is based on my journey as a solopreneur and how I do what I do. But it's also the exact same training I've given to companies like Salesforce.com, LinkedIn, Google, Amazon, all those big players, and that you can get it for like $1,000 for the year. So,
John Barrows, everyone, thank you for being here, John. See you soon. Keep rolling, man.
Thanks for having me, Simon. Appreciate it.